Okay, perfect. So like Josh was saying, the last session we kind of focused on the perimeter. We focused a little on secure firewall, but also the components that secure firewall utilizes, like App ID, to be able to detect that application. So that's like your AI usage, like, hey, this is a ChatGPT, this is any flavor of that, this is Microsoft, this is whatever. And then we talked about encrypted visibility engine, where you're able to look at traffic, even though it's encrypted, to be able to identify and build policy and even block it if it's considered risky. So now we're going to continue this session on securing AI, and we're going to be talking about the edge. Because the reality is there's a huge thing going on like in the business part of things. You have a CEO asking, why aren't we moving faster on AI? You have the COO asking, or and the board, what's our exposure if an employee leaks data into a public AI tool? So like the CEO is kind of like the gas, the COO is the brakes, and the CISO is the seatbelt. It's annoying until it saves your life. So what we do here is we make seatbelts, not brakes. So the job is to kind of answer both without becoming that office of no. Because the reality is employees are using it, developers are using it, and that shadow IT attack surface has just grown dramatically. I mean, we've heard reports of finance using things. We've heard reports of OT using things. And what I mean is like things like Defense Claw, and they're installing their own agents, they're building their own models. I mean, even in the finance case, he was building a mathematical model. So it's not necessarily that he shouldn't be using it, but you want to be able to build those guardrails, especially in that finance, example. There's regulatory exposure, there's intellectual property leakage, there's contractual breach risk, and there's the operational risk. So everybody's kind of looking at things differently, and we want to enable the business, and that's kind of why we named this Securing AI to optimize business innovation. It's a really long, lengthy sentence, and I'm aware of that. I try to workshop that and make that shorter, but I wasn't able to. But the reality is productivity gains, time to market, developer velocity, and heavy-handed controls don't reduce risk. That's like worse than anything else. Just saying, hey, we're gonna block everything. You will only block as much as you can see. And so you want to be able to enable them. And now we're in a hybrid world. Our users are no longer just in that perimeter, that use case we used last month. We're no longer just in the perimeter. We're everywhere. We're on every device. We're using so many other things. So we need to be able to protect users from anywhere, but protect data from users anywhere connecting to anything. So that'll be a focus for today. Next month, we'll be focusing on securing AI itself. So, how do you rate this AI model? How do you protect against agentic AI? How do you authenticate agentic AI? And what can I do about OpenClaw? So we'll go into that in the next session. But for this session, we'll go ahead and jump into the edge to cloud control point, and James Cox will be running us through some things, and then Tim Glenn will help out a little bit, where we'll talk about Microsoft Purview a little bit because we don't want you to duplicate efforts. So we'll talk about how we can integrate those two so that you can pick up, where you left off in the Microsoft world and then extend that policy into everything else. So with that, I'll hand it over to James.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Eric. And Eric hit on some great points there from obviously what we talked about a couple weeks ago from a overall visibility stance. And right, we were talking about visibility and doing policy enforcement at a edge use case, a network edge use case from an FTD. And today I want to take those same ideas around visibility first, and then controllability of that traffic from a secure access perspective. So our remote users, our branch sites, places that could just have direct internet access compared to coming all the way back to your data center to then do the egress. And we talked about in the previous session. Obviously, it was very FTD focused around in the encrypted visibility engine, and how we are looking at applications and traffic and applying fingerprinted identities to them. Everything we talked about before completely comes over into the secure access platform because in its core, this is an FTD inside of here. This is the same snort engine that is running locally if you were trying to do those application controls. But where we kind of get some legs up is now we're looking at all the web traffic, right? We're looking at all individual users that are connected to the secure access platform as compared to, just a data center or just branch site number one. And we're able to apply more granular policy based on the fact that we, know where they're coming from. Obviously, from an Active Directory integration, we can pull users in groups. We can create policies that apply to finance or HR or IT, or be more strict or more lenient around those. So as part of the conversation today, I have a couple demo environments set up. One that just has a ton of traffic that's being sent to it. And then the second one is a home lab environment here where we can create some policy. I can run some scripts against it so that we can actually generate it and see it blocking in real time. Um, but again, a lot of this is going to come down to visibility. And as Eric mentioned, coming from a C-suite of, hey, we want to adopt AI, we want, everything to be AI centric and, start burning tokens left, right, and center to make our businesses better. There's going to be questions that are going to come back to the IT groups that say, hey, what are we using? What is our landscape right now? And that may be a big question mark, right? There may be some data flows and some business processes that have come across the IT desks that say, hey, we're going to start adopting ChatGPT from an enterprise, or we're going to go all Copilot. And that's great. But how are we going to see who's trying to go around us and who's trying to get access to additional AI tools, and going all the way into DLP controls for those AI tools? Who is trying to upload proprietary information for the company, or just looking at a PII or PCI or GDPR perspective? So again, two demo environments here. This first one we're going to take a peek at is really here just to show what the overall platform is seeing, and how we can utilize this telemetry to help create allowed policies or block policies, right? This doesn't have to be here just for a we don't want you to do. This can also be for we are going to allow you to do X, Y, and Z when it comes to different AI models and AI applications. If we extrapolate this out and think about it a little bit more, obviously this will apply to general web apps as well, right? We are just going to specifically be talking about AI style tool sets today, but this can go out into all of our web resources as well. So the first thing I want to highlight here is that when we start onboarding our users, our endpoints, our branch locations, or even our data center edges, we are going to start, collecting telemetry, and we are going to start filtering this out into a bunch of different categories. And through this monitor tab, I'll just pull this back up again, right? We have a lot of canned reports and canned dashboards that are going to help us, look for these specific use cases. When we jump over to my live version, we'll be looking at the activity search to see exactly what's happening in almost real time. Slight little delay by the time I hit enter and it shows up on the screen, but that's the internet for us. So we have a lot of great predefined reporting structures in here that are going to give us more insights to what our users are doing. And we're going to talk about a lot of these quickly, but we're going to talk about them. So again, as kind of a day one user of Secure Access, we've pushed our clients using the umbrella module inside of Secure Client itself to start sending traffic to Secure Access. And in doing so, we're going to start categorizing that traffic again. And one of the first things that we have inside of Secure Access to help understand and give you a viewpoint as to what is happening in your environment is our app discovery. Now, again, this platform I'm using right now has a lot of data inside of it. There's something like 3,000 endpoints that are just spewing stuff at this. So this is generally, not a lot of application discovery, but again, it is kind of a unique use cases for these demos. But inside of here, we've already started to come through and say, hey, there are 552 or 522 applications that we've identified that haven't been classified for your business use cases as to are they allowed, or should they just be blocked entirely from general, from your business practices or business rules. Underneath of that, we've broken out some high risk stuff, some generative AI anonymizers and peer-to-peer type applications. And as well as down here, we also will show trends around DNS requests by those applications, the categorizations by risk across the number. This one in particular is by the number of apps, where this previous one is by date. So if we see massive spikes, when a new LLM comes out or a new model is made public, you guys can go in there and reviews and say, hey, this is not business related. Why are we doing this? And if we need to, let's start doing some restrictions on this. And one of the things we can do inside of here is I can actually dive into these generative AI apps, and we can quickly see inside of here which apps are being utilized. So, these are going to be all the big players that are out there today. So we have OpenAI, Hugging Face itself, Anthropic Claude, Gemini, Copilot, right? Nothing in here would probably surprise anyone from a general business stance. But what I have the ability to do is get a little bit better of a deep dive without going into my SIM to see who is utilizing these applications. So when I actually click into these identities, I will show exactly which groups. So that my HR staff is using this, my IT staff, as well as 2 named users and a individual workstation that has been identified, again, based on the telemetry of just sending traffic to secure access. I also get the ability to come in here and get a little bit more detail around the risk, right? Generally speaking, OpenAI's ChatGPT comes with some high business risk, right? There's ways that users can misuse the platform. So we do give you this quick understanding of what we think about the application themselves. There could be use cases out here that say, hey, from a Copilot, right? This is a known good application for us. We want our users to be utilizing it, and we can go ahead and kind of, I don't want to say discard these risk details, but just understand that where Cisco places them on a risk score itself. And then
And
from an
this is
attributes,
also, well, can you go back? And this is, you're going to go right into it on that compliance, but this is also those types of things when you're building your like your governance risk and compliance. When you need to build that documentation, this makes great output.
yeah,
This is what you want to funnel, this is what you want to communicate, and this is what you want to talk about when you have those meetings with your team. You're like, hey, we're going to focus in on these are our sanctioned apps. We're not going to allow this. This is going to be limited. And then you're going to put those guardrails around it. But take this information, digest it, discuss it, and then build policy around it. A yes, build policy. If it's a no, why no? And that's also policy. So it's great to have this documented,
yeah,
especially as get ready for audits.
yeah, absolutely. And that's a great call out there, Eric. As I was pivoting over just before that, we also are going to give you, attributes around where we are, again, seeing this from a categorization perspective, where it aligns to from compliance, from, this particular one's calling out, this example was calling out GDPR, as well as SOC 2 and HIPAA. Obviously, in these models, we do know that there are vulnerabilities that sit out there. So again, these are all great data elements to help you understand the application. ChatGPT is probably not the best example here because it is so well known. But if we think about, a DeepSeek model that just got, as early as, the early part of 2026, there was a lot of unknown about it, right? And here we are giving you details around what we understand about the application, as well as what you can do from a control perspective. So
Well,
inside of here,
I'll make an
yep,
example on that one. Um, Cisco blocked OpenClaw. Like
yep,
OpenClaw came out, it became available, people were using it, and Cisco said, "Oh, time's out." Even though we're all engineers, we know what it is, but that makes it even riskier because we're all engineers, we know what it is. Because we know enough to be dangerous, and Cisco just said, "Hey, nobody's gonna use it," and they blocked it all. And then like that weekend is when one of our engineers actually built Defense Claw, and then they built Defense Claw, and now they're trying to measure it out. So it's not maybe it's not forever, maybe you're not blocking things forever. But maybe you just block them until you know what it's going to take for you to be able to say, hey, this is the risk we're taking, we accept it, and these are the guardrails we're going to put around it.
yeah. And again, awesome call out there. Again, from a uh, Cisco in general is going to be a little bit ahead of the game from a telemetry perspective of what we see worldwide, well before it's actually released. But um, a lot of what I've been talking about so far is kind of the day one operations, right? We just kind of deployed it. We just deployed secure access. We enrolled our endpoints. We're gaining that telemetry. This window here of doing control around this is kind of just an easy button of adding in controls to predefined policies that you as an organization has created. So this may be a little bit more of a day two, week two type of thing. But as you all as customers are finding use cases for us, and we start building out application lists that apply to access rules, we can easily add these new applications well beyond the AI categorizations to these lists, so that we can say, hey, we just saw something new pop up from an HR perspective. They're using some new workday tool. We need to make sure it's allowed, and we can easily come in here and actually add this into these applications or in these application lists, as well as see what's inside of them. So while this will throw me an error because I shouldn't be allowing ChatGPT to HR in a restricted application perspective, I don't have to cross launch into a different policy set to go find this, remember it, and add it. I can do this all from these application detectors. I do want to come back out here to this app discovery because when I come out and look at the applications that have been non-reviewed, come on, reload. I get the ability to come in here and obviously filter things out, right? From a business risk perspective, categorization perspective. So if there's we want to block all anonymizers, we can filter that down. But again, this is the breadth and depth of the telemetry we're seeing, and we're able to categorize this and show you exactly where it's being utilized in the environment from an identity perspective. And remember, identities can be human, they can be branch offices, they can be the data center firewalls themselves, even down to the virtual appliances or the DNS resolvers, as we call them now, that could sit in segments of your network that would not have secure client enabled on them. So again, we're talking a lot about telemetry here, and want to call out a couple new ones that we've added into the overall platform is AI supply chain risk. So not everyone on the call today will probably be thinking about, hey, we're app developers, or we're actually worried about code revs and stuff like that. But when we talk about AI supply chain issues, this could be just someone trying to run models on their own machines. And in this policy that's predefined out here, there's a rule that says that we cannot use, or we should not be using DeepSeek, period, right? So what we've actually seen is we've seen telemetry come across the platform that says someone tried to go out there and download DeepSeek, and we'll actually be able to call out that directly from this is the actual workstation number 35. It's assigned to an HR staff from a categorization perspective. And we can see that when we scroll across here, here's the IPs we're reaching out to. It's been categorized as a prohibited supplier, as well as the rule that it came in on. So in this example, we're actually warning this user that this is not a great idea. This in particular is not preventing them from getting to the site, but it is preventing them from downloading the actual model. And again, this was a little bit ago from a telemetry perspective, but if we were doing this in real time or trying to download this would pop immediately for that categorization.
Real quick,
Yeah.
just taking a step back. Right now, James is in Security Cloud Control, which is our security platform. Everything that security kind of goes into here. But going down that, he's in our SSC platform, our Secure Access. And we host it, and like you said, now we have this feature, now we have this feature. That's one of those things that you gain by having your network and security hosted in the cloud, is that when things do come out, it's not on you to upgrade, host, build, and that because these things move so quickly, this will allow you to take advantage of that. So just keep that in mind as you go back and forth. Is your data center networking enough? Is it time for us to expand? Maybe transport wasn't the reason, but now as you start to move into these AI guardrails and the DLP conversations and the AI conversations, maybe it is time to have that conversation. So it's just something I wanted to lay out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of skipping over the idea of our access policies, right? But our access policies are just like our firewall rules from a I'm going to allow this set of or this segment of the network, this group of users to get access to a GPT or an AI agent for that matter. And I want to spend more time really talking about the DLP side of things, the controls I can put into when I'm allowing that user to interact with those agents or those platforms. Our DLP controls come in kind of two. Well, it's a handful of flavors, but we're going to talk about our primary two. The first one is a real time DLP control. This would be me interacting with let's call an AI platform. This could be me uploading a file, even as simplistic out to Gmail, the web browser version, as well as things like Box, Dropbox, file storage platforms. I can create rules that allow users to interact with those, but then have additional controls that say if I see file types and data classifications, I'm not going to allow that to even be uploaded to those platforms. And from a traditional DLP stance, when I dive into one of these, may have to jump to the production one here in a second. But when I talk about these DLP rules, we can do integrations into Office 365 for this from a labeling and a tag perspective. We can reach out to your SharePoint sites if needed for these real-time uploads, where we can interpret your predefined tags and force those users into your tenants away from the public accessible tenants and models. In this particular
Which is a
one,
huge thing for like Copilot and ChatGPT. Like right now, a lot of people, the way I mean, just talking to friends in the industry, a lot of them have, they've done this by saying, nobody's going to use their own ChatGPT. You're going to use our instance. They've bought the license. They've done that. So those are the types of things that you're going to be building. This is the technical, but just think about it from the business policy and the mandate, and so that you can actually control that data.
yeah, and specifically, I want to highlight when I talk about real-time DLP controls, I'm talking about file transfers, right? I'm talking about me uploading a document or technically even downloading a document from a repository or from a file share or a remote file share, right? And I'm able to come in here and provide predefined classifications against those file types. So again, GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, PII. I also have the ability to come in here and do geo-specific from a US or anywhere else for that matter, depending on your business requirements. That we can be more strict or less strict around certain PII elements, as well as I can do I can do my own data classifications inside of here. So if there are account numbers or there are things that are valuable to the business, I can create this via regex. I'm probably going to have to jump over to my production environment to deep dive into some of these, but um, this particular one has no relevance probably to anyone on the call. This is looking for PII for Australia, right? If they're using different combinations for unique identifiers for bank accounts or for birth dates or anything along those lines, we have this already predefined and built in. But again, I can actually come in here and create a custom regex, which I'm going to table that idea just for a second until I jump to my production environment to
I'm
actually
so glad
create.
we now have generative AI to build regex.
Yes, that's it. um, so again, we have these predefined classifiers in here to help put controls around what our users are uploading to these to any type of real environment, right? We can then take this one step forward, and we can talk about what we can do inside of AI guardrails. And an AI guardrail is me actually interacting with the AI models. So I don't want to say forget about the DLP style controls, but let's take them one step further, right? Let's talk about controls around privacy, where I'm no longer uploading a file. I'm actually inputting this as me typing in a text string. Or I'm coming in here, from a safety perspective and talking about, how do we get an AI a chatbot to interact with me in an unsafe way that may produce content that it should not be there, right? This particular one, we're looking at privacy guardrails. So again, a lot of PII information that's out here. Um, and then lastly, there are security guardrails inside of this as well. That if I see that the end user is trying to upload code or trying to do prompt injections to these AI platforms, I can stop this before they even hit enter on their keyboard. So they can sit there and type it out or copy and paste it in, but we will interject and we will not allow this to be sent to the model itself. So we're no longer waiting for the guardrails to be put in place at the model level. We're putting this at the network level, again, preventing me from sending it, restricted data, PII, proprietary information up to these public models. And again, if you guys are looking at enterprise versions of ChatGPT or you're looking at Copilot, we can actually kind of do these rules in reverse too and say, hey, this is content that we expect to be up there, and let's allow this to happen. And hopefully there's additional guardrails you put in place around those types of controls as well.
And let me just jump on this for a second. This going back to like the boardroom, the COO and the CEO, when they're asking about like, where are we with AI? What AI apps are we using? How do we ensure they're not, submitting anything into the AI that we're not worried about? How do we know that they're not inputting anything in the text that we should be worried about? This is like how you control it, but keep in mind there's a whole thing on reporting as well. So you want to, take a snapshot of where you start and then start enforcing these policies, build that story, communicate that to the board, communicate that to your manager. Because I think a lot of times, a lot of us folks do a lot of great work that just doesn't get communicated or they don't understand the depth of it. And I don't know that we'll ever win that. I don't think we'll ever win that, but I do think that it's important to communicate. These are the logical steps that we've taken. These are the file controls that we've taken. We are looking at GDPR. You want to make sure that you're tracking this as you go along, because all that together kind of builds that story. And maybe they'll sleep at night.
If I might chime in just for a moment as well, real quick. In my opinion, when we look at the privacy and the security and the safety guardrails, you might think, hey, ChatGPT and Claude and the other mainstream models already have these controls built in. Why do I need this extra level of control? Like these models are already providing me some level of safety. Well, what about other models like Shannon? There's a significant number of models out there that are clearly available and clearly do not have guardrails, right? There are models that are it's a free for all, right? And it's a big industry, but just as big as the industry of controlled models with guardrails, there's this other industry of models without guardrails. So there's a real clear use case for having an external system provide guardrails around these models, and one that we should be concerned with. And then there's also the case that ChatGPT might allow you to upload a whole list of of people's names and addresses and social security numbers. Try it, right? It will work. You can upload that kind of data to ChatGPT, and it'll tell you that it's sensitive. We need to make sure that that doesn't happen, right? And that's where the PII models or the PII guardrails that James is talking about here come into play. So, yeah, this
And
is
that's
really
the
relevant
great
stuff.
thing. And yeah, that's the great thing about the network level. Think about where it's at.
Yeah.
It's at that transport. It's from the endpoint to the cloud, from the perimeter to the cloud. It's right there in the middle. That policy is right there in the middle, and we have the advantage as the network to be at the packet level. So we have that advantage. We're able to see that. So that's a huge win for us.
Yeah, and I do want to highlight that, and we should always be mentioning this in any secure access calls. There's constant evolution inside of the platform. So as we find and hear from customers that they're looking for a subset of features or a different way of doing things, we evolve and we adapt to those. The file control piece of secure access and DLP controls we've always had the ability to read in labels coming from your own DLP platforms, probably more specifically coming out of Microsoft. But for each one of these rules, I can actually read up to 10 file labels. So when we're inspecting these and saying, hey, we do not expect company restricted labels to be anywhere near any of this, and we want to start blocking it as a secondary kind of security control, I can now read those labels. And what we've actually added, and why I talk about the iterative side of things, is we've added in the ability to look at file sizes. So if we want to start talking about, min and max sizes that we expect these files to be, we can do that, as well as saying, hey, from this marketing organization, right? We do not expect them to be sending any type of data or databases, right? We expect them to be doing images and documents, maybe some compressed files. And again, being able to create these rules and focus them for specific business use cases has kind of been one of those. We didn't have it initially, and now we've iterated and put these into the platform to give everyone the controls that they're looking for. This last one in here, the unclassified, right? What do we want to do when we don't see labels applied to any of this? Do we even want to touch them? This is actually a newer feature that has been added to the platform. So now with this checked off, I don't get the ability to look at file labels, but now I'm saying inspect everything that has labels or no labels, right? Or has the ability to scan without labels. Again, with all these
James,
policies.
if I could jump in there, sir. When we're talking about those labels, I think it's so important, just because many of the customers I've worked with have spent years and have invested massively in inflating purview and making sure those purview labels are attached to data in just the right ways. And as Eric mentioned, maybe you have different levels of sensitivity that you allow in different LLMs. Maybe your most highly confidential or your restricted data is only allowed in Copilot, but maybe you allow less sensitive things in something like a ChatGPT. You can configure these rules, set these rules up so that the data that's classified in certain ways goes in certain locations. And when you're in that boardroom having those high-level conversations, it makes it really easy to say, not only do we have a handle on this, but we're actually mature in how we're handling this, right? Certain types of data land in certain places. And as new models come out, like Tim mentioned with Shannon, we have the ability to control that at a very granular level. So I think it all goes back to that story of we've invested massively in this. We've got other controls. Secure access is a way of operationalizing those controls and making sure that data goes where you expect it to and nowhere else. Sorry,
Great
James.
call, Josh. No, you're good. Guys, this is why I asked for 4 or 5 people to be on the call, so that we're bringing up relative and
if I might jump
information.
in just real quick as well, too, James. I'm sorry, if you just throw up, in addition to the ability to manually configure the labels here and actually type in what the sensitivity label is that's been configured in Purview, when you integrate secure access with Microsoft 365, secure access will as a SaaS platform through the API, secure access will actually ingest all of the purview labels that you've already configured. So you don't have to manually add them, right? No fat finger typo mistakes, right? We'll manually or we'll automatically pull them in through the API integration. And if those labels change or are updated or new ones are added, they'll automatically get pulled in as well. So yeah, so the SaaS integration between Secure Access and M365 really enhances your ability to control where that data is going outside of the Microsoft, well, inside the Microsoft environment, but also outside of the Microsoft environment, where Purview really doesn't shine. Purview shines really brightly inside of the Microsoft environment. But when you start going outside to Dropbox, Box, other platforms, we need additional controls.
Salesforce.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
additional controls to manage that data. And this is where secure access shines really brightly.
And I will say,
Third-party contractors.
because we're always going to try to, we're not going to end the session in the next couple of minutes, but we always try to captivate people to join the following session. in our next session at the end of June, we are demoing that. We will show the Purview integration. So I apologize, not all the demo gods aligned this morning or last night for that matter, but we will be demoing that and how that actually does look like from an integration from a platform as well as from an endpoint. So make sure to join the one at the end of June. Quickly, again, all these rules are identity based, so we can apply this to individual groups of users, individual segments of the network, as well as, we really didn't even talk about, from, and Tim and Josh brought up, the Shannon model. Right now, this rule is looking at Anthropic, DeepSeek, and ChatGPT. If I come in here and scroll down through here, Shannon's not on this list, but I can add this to the overall rule above. Again, sorry, this is read only where we're looking at right now, but with any of these destinations that we have, we can actually selectively choose which type of interactions we're looking for, whether it is going to be me looking for a response, or if I was able to get some proprietary information up into the model. If the model responds with that proprietary, what do we want to do? Do we want to block it? Do we never want it to be returned to the user? And then conversely, we can do it from a two-way street there, from a prompt and a response. Lastly, or second to lastly, we talk about what we can do from an action perspective. So again, if we're talking about from a day one implementation, we may put this rule in as a monitor where we are doing the detections and kind of showing you as the end users what we would have done with this rule set as blocks. So we're not doing any business impact with a model or for a resource that isn't 100% company vetted, but certain groups of or organizations are utilizing it. And then we can also do end user notification. So when a user is misusing these rules or getting hit with these rules, we can actually do a pop-up message that would be presented through Secure Client, as well as an email message that can be sent to a couple different places, right? We could be sending this out to the SOC. We could be sending this out to technically the end user and the end user's managers here.
Yeah, and that's where you want to include your like acceptable use policy. And that's also, I mean, just from operations speaking, include somewhere so they can get to a service now. Like include a way that, because if they feel like they should be able to use that, you want to be able to capture that as well. So give them an opportunity to be able to submit as well.
Okay, so I do actually want to take just a quick pause, guys. Were there any questions, comments that popped in the chat?
Not so far. It is a good reminder, though, if there are things that folks want to double click on, if there's any topics that you'd like to spend a little more time looking at, let us know. Very, very happy to hear that feedback and or just any general comments you may have. So please use the chat.
And if it's your first time, you'll notice that things go kind of quickly. A lot of times we have weeks to do this. A lot of times we do this in multiple sessions. Kind of what we're trying to do is kind of show you everything that you can do. If you want to take that a step further, reach out to your account team so we can slow it down. We can go into it. We can go into the methodology of it and demo it as well, and even POV.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jack,
We
please put it in the chat.
We try to customize these demos to the overall business use cases, the requirements. So again, while looking at that first instance there, that just has a lot of data behind it. What I've done is I've created a couple rules in my home lab here around some of these use cases, as well as a couple VMs running in the background that are interacting with these GPTs and trying to get around my controls. While the controls are pretty limited right now, I have the ability in here that this particular rule is actually allowing my one endpoint in the network to do I should actually just click into it and show you guys. This is allowing me from a singular endpoint, not a named user. I don't do much from an IDP integration here right now, but I'm looking at it at an endpoint that's enrolled in Secure Access. And I'm looking at it coming from a application perspective of I have two defined right now from a cloud storage perspective of actually looking at, this is Box, right? And actually Dropbox is down there further, and we'll talk about that in a second. So I'm allowing this user to go to Box and Dropbox, but I'm also coming down here into an application control, and there is a window over top of that. Okay, I actually have some individual application control rules that say what I'm allowed to do when I'm inside of that. So for this particular user, I'm only allowing them to download files from Box, right? This is just an application allow policy. I could go in here and reverse these and make these block rules so that I'm allowed to upload a file to Box if that's my business requirement, but I'm not allowed to download them from anywhere else. And same thing along the lines of Box or Dropbox and all the other cloud. I say all the other, a vast majority of the other cloud hosted sharing platforms. So we can put in these individual controls, and we can again apply this to users, segments of the network, if needed, or we can do it across the board.
And if you're wondering where to start, remember in the beginning of this session, we did that app discovery.
Yep.
So this isn't, you're not just shooting in the dark. You know
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
to start. You know what you've vetted. You know what you've said no to.
And we talked about it a little bit around tenant controls. With the Secure Access platform, I can put in my tenant controls from an Office 365, G Suite, Slack, Dropbox, YouTube, ChatGPT at the moment. This list will continue to grow. But what this forces the platform to do is it's only going to allow any user coming from this from the Secure Access platform to interact with your own tenant. So it would prevent me as a Cisco user on your network from getting to my Cisco's Office 365 environment. Or as the follow-up meeting to this in June will show, from a ChatGPT perspective, we at Cisco, we are forced into our own model. We're not allowed to interact with the publicly accessible models. So I can define that for this rule. And it doesn't have to be a platform setting. It can be a rule-specific setting that says, hey, we have to go to this specific one. For me, just for the demo, I didn't define them before the overall demonstration here. But what I also have in here is from an allow and a block perspective. So again, from my local machine, I'm allowing ChatGPT, and then from we're going to actually modify this one from a overall network landscape that I have here. So again, a couple VMs, couple traffic generators that would fall into this any category beyond that one named machine. I want to block Google Gemini, right? Normally I would beat up on someone like a Copilot, but the reality is that so many organizations are using Microsoft and the entire ecosystem that it's a little bit easier to beat up on a Gemini or a Perplexity or a Claude because it won't hurt anyone's feelings by me blocking that. But I joke. So I'm just going to quickly update this rule so that anything in my environment trying to reach out to Gemini is going to be blocked. This is going to prevent me from getting to the website, is what this rule is going to do. If I come back and I look at my DLP policies, I have two defined here. One is a real time and one is a generative AI guardrail perspective. When I look at my GPT rule that I have inside of here, I'm applying all my safety guardrails, my privacy, security. Not really looking at file types here. We're going to modify that one for the next demo. But I also have a new identity map to this. So I have the two roaming computers as well as the network tunnel group, which is coming off a Meraki device. And in here, I am selectively choosing individual generative AIs. So I did want to draw this out again that we saw before from a destination perspective. From a Google Gemini, I'm allowing it, I'm only expecting prompts to be returned. My demo is basically just reaching out via Python script and saying, hello world, don't respond to me, just so that I don't burn through tokens too quickly. But what this looks like, again, from a telemetry perspective, is I'm allowing some apps, not allowing others, and putting additional controls in place around those interactions. So again, if I were to launch that client from an AI guardrails perspective, try to go out to Gemini. On my named machine, I'd be allowed. On my traffic generator, I would be denied. And then if I try to put any prompts into there, depending on the content, right? If it's PII, social security numbers, driver's licenses, the secure client is never going to, or really via secure client, secure access is never going to let that traffic pass to the GPT model itself. So it's multi-layered
Make
security.
that point again. Can you make that point again? Because I know that's something that I've been asked quite a bit about, where that it doesn't actually reach.
Yeah. So again, in this rule, we have an access rule that is allowing a singular desktop, a singular identity to get to ChatGPT. With this data loss prevention rule, I'm allowing it, well, technically it's written as a block, but I'm blocking access. Once I get access to the GPT, I'm blocking my endpoint from uploading any type of proprietary sensitive information. The way this traffic flow actually is handled here is from the endpoint itself. We have secure client installed. When I go out to ChatGPT, I'm matched on my identity based off of the secure client information, as well as a couple other data points. And then I'm evaluated by the rule set. So it says I'm allowed to ChatGPT. It paints the page on my screen for me, and then this rule from an AI guardrail perspective will start interacting with the user's traffic when I start typing in my prompt to that GPT. So in this example, if I were to have a list of a flat file list where I copied and pasted out social security numbers, when I go and hit enter to actually send that prompt off, secure access is going to intercept that and never allow it to get to the model. There'll be an error message generated on the overall ChatGPT screen that says failed upload or something along those lines, and it never gets accessed. Right. A telemetry perspective, we're going to log all that. We're going to show where the user was, what they're trying to interact with. We will actually show you the clear text that they put into the prompt itself. And subsequently, that same idea works if I were to upload that flat file as a file itself. So we're going to look at that file and evaluate it and make sure that it is clean, it applies to the policy or complies with the policy. And then if it does, we'll pass that through and we'll let the model do what it's supposed to do. But again, if we put in these security rules and say you can't, guess what? You can't. And based on the fact that
network to make that decision.
Right.
And I think that's so important to call out, because when you think about the end user, right? I like to quote Jurassic Park here: life always finds a way. When the end user gets blocked from uploading the labeled file, the first thing they're going to think about doing is copy and pasting the data out of that labeled file into the prompt. When they get blocked from uploading the copied and pasted data from the prompt, the next thing they're going to do is try to save that same file as an unlabeled file and upload that. So when you think about like all the work you've put in to get your labeling just right, and you make sure everything is labeled, your end user's going to kind of undo that, not maliciously. They just want to get their job done. But now you have those additional controls where you can prevent the user from doing that. And then they sort of get the point, hey, I can't really do this. So it really helps to, the name guardrail is so apropos here because it really keeps them on the straight and narrow.
Josh, I'm so glad you said that, because you're absolutely right, right? People have a job to do when they're going to try and do whatever they can to get that job done correctly, or to get that job done. When they try and upload the file with the sensitivity label, right, it might be blocked. Then they might go and try and copy and paste some of the data from the file into the LLM model, and it'll be blocked. Then they might even try and take a screenshot of the data. And because Secure Access has OCR capabilities, Secure Access will recognize that there is, data that's PII in the screenshot, and it will be blocked. So we've tried to do everything we can to look at all the different scenarios and allow administrators to be able to apply controls against all of those different methodologies. So it was
one of the greatest things that I ever learned from one of my mentors on GRC is you always start with people you have contracts with. Those are the people you trust. So if I don't have a contract with ChatGPT, I don't want to rely on their PII controls.
Mm-mm.
Yep.
And I apologize. I'm doing a bad job of scrolling around as other guys are talking here. But what they were talking about is spot on. I did want to just quickly show that from a telemetry perspective, what I've kind of been tweaking on the side screen here is just a Python script that's reaching out to multiple GPTs to interact with them. Again, it says hello world, that type of stuff. But we can actually see that this individual connection here that I just kicked off was blocked because this is an unknown identity on my network. While it does show, from a branch peer coming off the Meraki device, it doesn't show me my endpoint name. So I'm not matching any of the rules that we just came and generated. And again, I know we were talking about Gemini there. So if I look for the Gemini one that is, here's our Gemini, these are all being blocked. So these are all block rules. This one never even got to the website. So this blocked on my block GPT rule. And again, based off the categorization that Umbrella is aware of, and never actually got to the end user prompt there. So I did want to show that, we are doing this in real time. We are able to kick off traffic here. If I look at these timestamps, 11:55, so 3 minutes ago. I think I kind of want to sum this up in a couple different ways. In all these AI conversations we're having, visibility is critical to step one, right? As soon as I can grant you guys visibility to your traffic flows, we can then start talking about applying policies that are relevant to your business applications, whether that's allowing or denying access to a GPT model, or even more so, allowing or denying access out to file shares and cloud storage style platforms. Applying DLP controls to both of those use cases is going to be a huge thing for a lot of customers these days. How do I put in those controls without having a massive DLP implementation or a secondary client for that matter? If I've defined my labels out in Microsoft, again, I can read them in. I can apply them to these policies. And I don't need multiple platforms to do that. With secure access, while we are talking about web style requests, this can be extended out to our remote access VPN users, our site-to-site VPN tunnels from a business-to-business perspective, as well as things that are inside our data centers, and even outward bound into our cloud operations or our cloud providers. So we've touched on a lot in a very short period today, as most of our calls have done in the past couple of this series. Please reach out, ask questions. Tim, myself, Josh, and Eric, we can all set up. Josh and Eric can help set Tim and I up for demos and POCs if we need to validate and go through these use cases. But I really do appreciate everyone's time with this series. Our next one, again, we'll be going into how we're controlling the models themselves, and helping uncover shadow IT trying to run models in places that it shouldn't be.
Yeah, James, you hit the nail on the head. If you want to sign up for that, we'll have that posted on our website within the next couple days here. And you can also join our mailing list. We'll deliver the invitation right to your calendar. That makes it a little easier for you. Any other thoughts, folks, before we close out for today? Or
hey, and anyone on the call, if you're going to Cisco Live, find Tim. He'll have an Amex.
Yeah, what's your session on, Tim?
I've got two sessions. They're both on automation. One is Cisco Cloud Security Automation, and the other is using the Ansible tool for automation. So yeah, both pretty exciting. Lots of automation. And if you are out at Cisco Live, folks, please do look for me. If you see me, say hi. We'll grab lunch, or maybe we'll head on over to the Cisco Live store and we'll buy some cool stuff, buy some cool swag, send you home with some swag from Cisco Live. So yeah, please reach out. I'd be happy to say hello and hang out with you.
Great.
very good. Well, everybody.